Hi there, this is Rev B J from Unity, Manhattan. I am re-recording the message from Sunday, February 14th, 2021. And this was the second of a three-part series of messages on the theme of love for February, but also based on the passage in Matthew 22, verse 37 through 40, where Jesus gives the commandment to love God, to love our neighbor as ourselves. In fact, Jesus in this particular passage is responding to a question that a man comes up and asks him. And basically, this person is asking Jesus, which of the 613 Jewish religious laws is the most important? And Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind." This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And on these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Well, last Sunday we explored the topic how to love God, because this is the greatest commandment that Jesus gives. This Sunday, we're going to explore how to love ourselves. What is love? That's a mighty question, and there are all kinds of ways to respond to that question of what is love, and what does it mean to love oneself? Well, I think that sometimes it's easier to understand a concept when we know what something is not. It gives us a clear idea of what it is. So I'd like to share a story with you that I think illustrates this point. Now, this is a story about a woman who survives an alligator attack. And she tells the story in her own words. "While out walking," she says, "along the edge of a pond just outside of the villages with my soon-to-be ex-husband, discussing property issues and other divorce concerns, we were surprised by a huge 12-foot alligator which suddenly emerged from the murky waters and began charging us with its large jaws wide open. She must have been protecting her nest because she was extremely aggressive. And if I had not had my little Beretta Jetfire 22 caliber pistol with me, I would not be here with you today. Just one shot to my husband's knee, that's all it took, and I was able to get away easily. And I saved a bunch of money in alimony." Surely, this is not what Jesus was talking about, or what Jesus had in mind when he spoke about loving our neighbor, but first loving ourselves. My question to you and to myself is, in what ways are we shooting ourselves in the knee? What ways are we sabotaging ourselves through our own thoughts, words, and actions or behaviors because we are mistaken about what loving ourselves really means? We teach here in Unity that love is a spiritual quality that we are all born with. It's one of our 12 spiritual gifts from God. Love, along with imagination, power, judgment, understanding, zeal, elimination, faith, life, order, wisdom, and strength, make up our 12 spiritual gifts from God. Now, during the months of this year, I will be focusing our Sunday messages on these 12 spiritual qualities. If you're interested in reading more about these 12 spiritual qualities that we are all born with, I invite you and suggest that you get a copy of Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore's book, The 12 Powers of Man, or William Warch's book called Your 12 Gifts from God, and Cora Fillmore's book, Christ Enthroned in Man. And these are available at Unity, www.unity.org. So, love is a quality that we've all been born with, a faculty of mind and of heart that we have within us to experience and express. So we are never, never, ever without love. And we never have to get love from anyone else. We are here in this human experience to learn how best to express this inner quality and how to experience the way that others express this inner quality of love. So when we talk about being loving to ourselves or to others, we're talking about the way that we experience and express this inner God-given quality. Loving God, loving others, loving ourselves is about how we express this inner love and how we experience the inner love that others express. It is not about getting love. Yet, although we always have this love, because of the state of mind that we are sometimes in, there are times when this inner love seems difficult to express or experience. It seems to be missing. It's kind of like the story about two young boys who are always getting in trouble. In the small town where they lived, if there was a calamity or some commotion in town, their parents could count on the possibility that their two boys, aged 8 and 10, were somehow involved. One day, a new pastor moved to this town, and the parents heard that he had a good reputation for handling wayward boys. Since they were at their wits' end as how to get some parental control over their sons, they made an appointment for the family to visit with this pastor. The pastor made an appointment with the parents, but he wanted to visit with each of the boys first to see if he could determine what the problem with them was. The 8-year-old had his visit with the pastor first. He was asked to take a seat in the pastor's study, and then the pastor asked the boy, "Where is love?" The boy didn't know how to respond, so he said nothing. So the pastor asked again, speaking a bit louder now, "Where is love?" The boy squirmed at this, but he said nothing. The pastor then pointed his finger at the boy and in an accusatory tone asked him loudly, "Where is love?" Well, the boy was so frightened, he jumped off the chair and he tore out the door. He ran all the way home and ran into a closet and slammed the door behind him. His older 10-year-old brother saw him and entered the closet where his brother was hiding, and he asked him, "What happened?" Well, the 10-year-old said, "Oh, brother, we are in big, big trouble this time. Love is missing and they think we did it." Well, I want to share that when love seems missing, we are doing it. We are not being in touch with who we are. Because what we are is a living expression of the light and love of God. I like the definition of self-love that is given by Alethea Luna, who co-writes an online website called Loner Wolf. In an article called How to Love Yourself, Ultimate Beginner's Guide, Luna defines self-love as the forgiveness, the acceptance, and the respect for who we are deep down, all of our faults, all of our beauty. Luna writes that when we love ourselves, we take care of ourselves. We honor our own limitations. We listen to our needs, and we respect our dreams enough to act on them. When we love ourselves, she writes, our health, happiness, and fulfillment are of supreme importance because we realize that without loving ourselves, we will never be able to fully, genuinely love others. And this is why self-kindness, self-compassion are important in order for us to be able to practice Jesus' second most important commandment on love, to love our neighbor as ourself. Alethea Luna gives the following list as some of the benefits of self-love in her article. Number 1, we have more tolerance of our flaws and weaknesses. We have more self-confidence. We have the ability to forgive ourselves. We can cultivate a healthier mindset with less sabotaging thoughts and behaviors. 5, we have improved ability to discover and to fulfill our purpose and our personal destiny. 6, we have increased love and compassion for ourselves and for others. Improved relationships, friendships, and work life. And we experience enhanced joy and gratitude for life. Number 9, we have increased playfulness, creativity, and spontaneity. There is more self-trust. 11, we make healthier and wiser choices. 12, we find that we have increased access to new opportunities. 13, we have a healthier mental condition, mental state of mind, with less anxiety, fear, and depression, greater resilience when faced with adversity. Number 14, we have a deeper access to our own soul and spiritual path. Given all of these benefits of self-love, why is it so hard for us to love ourselves? Well, some of us were raised in a society and likely in a family that didn't teach us the value of loving ourselves, of being kind to ourselves, of having self-compassion. Too often, having been raised in a good Christian home, with good Christian values, we think of self-love as selfish and narcissistic, caring little about the value of others. Putting ourselves in front of others, like the alligator lady. All throughout our early lives, we're taught to read, to write, to calculate, to build, theorize, study, and analyze life. We are taught how to say please and thank you, as well as what is acceptable and unacceptable to others and society at large. But most of us were not educated in one essential dimension of life: self-love, now often called self-compassion. Many of us were not taught to be kind to ourselves. We were not taught how to set healthy boundaries and to say yes and no when we mean yes and no. The emphasis in our upbringing was not on respect for ourselves and acceptance of our flaws as well as our virtues. It was on self-denial and self-sacrifice. These were the markers for a person who was considered to be a kind and a caring person. But living a life of self-denial and self-sacrifice led many of us to wear the unacceptable guise of the martyr, resulting in feelings of depression, bitterness, anxiety, and poor self-esteem. However, not being taught the value of kindness and compassion towards ourselves while we were growing up doesn't mean we cannot learn to treasure and value ourselves now. Self-love is not selfish because without taking care of ourselves, we're not able to truly care for others. Being able to love ourselves benefits other people, not just ourselves, because we have more to give, and we are genuinely able to love and accept others more fully. Kristen Neff, a psychologist and educator, is considered an expert on the theme of kindness and self-compassion. She writes that self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness, concern, and support that you'd show to a good friend. When faced with difficult life circumstances or confronting personal mistakes, failures, inadequacies, self-compassion, she writes, responds with kindness rather than harsh self-judgment. Self-compassion recognizes that imperfection is part of our shared human experience. And unity teaches that we can choose to express inner love towards ourselves because God loves us. And Jesus gives all kinds of examples and stories about the love that God has for us. In Matthew 10, verse 30 and 31, Jesus speaks about the grass in the field and the birds in the air. And he asks, are we not more valuable than these? So if God loves us, warts and all, who are we to not love ourselves? Because God unceasingly and unconditionally loves us, this does not mean that we do not have work to do on improving ourselves. We do have work to do, improving our ability to let God be God in us and through us. There is always our work to do. In fact, Jesus told us that God keeps working and that he also keeps working. In John 5:17, Jesus tells his listeners, "My Father is always working, and so am I." And dear ones, so are we. It is work to take time to let God love us and to love God. It is work to reflect on our thoughts, our words, attitudes, our actions and behaviors, and to make needed changes as we relate to ourselves and others. It is work to strive for attunement with the presence and the power of God in us so that this inner love that we have does not go dormant or missing in action, like with the boys. Minister and writer, teacher Rob Bell describes what often causes our love to go dormant, to go underground, to seem to be missing. In his book, Velvet Elvis, Bell wrote that God makes us in its image. We reflect the beauty, the wonder of our Creator. When we stay in touch with this presence in us, and Jesus calls us to return to our true selves, the pure, whole people that God intended us to be before we veered off course. Bell continues to explain why there are times we get caught up in the doings out here in our world and we veer off course. The problem, he says, is that the image of perfection that God has for us gets marred and scarred, and we lose touch with God's version of our story. Because we stop staying in touch with God's perfect image of us, God's story of us, we begin searching outside of ourselves for our identity. We work tirelessly to get others to love us. We step out of our own integrity by accepting the intolerable from others, showing little respect for ourselves as children of God, as expressions of God's light and love. We whittle away our own self-esteem and give up our inner power while waiting for others to acknowledge us, to validate us, to love us. But the thing is that that which we search for is right here. It's right in us. We have the ability to love ourselves and to cherish who we are. We have the ability to accept all of who we are, flaws and all. When we become like little children and become willing to retrust the vision of our story that God has and holds for us. Then we realize we don't have to be validated by the world that we live in. Loving ourselves comes from owning all that we are, including all that we are capable of: the good, the bad, the light, the dark, the brave, the fearful, the peaceful, the frustrated, the caring, all aspects of ourself. And we accept all of who we are, along with the inner courage that this brings to make the changes we need to make and we desire to make in ourselves. Self-love comes from constantly checking in with ourselves to see what we are about. And for us to stay attuned to God, to see what God is about in us. Kind of reminds me of this story about a farmer who sells a horse to a city gentleman, I'd say a city slicker. The sale seems a great bargain to this city slicker. But after a week, he brings the horse back to the farmer with a complaint. "There's something wrong with this horse that you sold me," he tells the farmer. "You know, I could be riding him and everything seems well, but he just stops. He quits for a while, and then we start back up again riding until the horse stops again. And he keeps doing this over and over during the ride. What's wrong with him? The farmer says, nothing's wrong with him. He just stops every now and then to check, just in case you might have said whoa and he didn't hear you. Well, to be able to love ourselves and experience all the benefits that this affords us, as I mentioned earlier, we need to call regular times, and we need to call whoa to ourselves so we can stop and listen to what God may have to say to us. To love ourselves, we need regular check-in with God times so we can hear over and over again, and we can get it straight in our heart and in our mind, God's story of us. What are some of the ways that we check in with God? Moments of reflection, spiritual journaling, reading inspirational stories and articles and books, studying the heart messages and the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters, which ring true for us, prayer, meditation, contemplation, mindfulness practices, gratitude exercises, enjoying the wonder and the awesome aspects of nature, of music, of art. Most any activity can be developed into a spiritual practice, a spiritual check-in time with God at the center of our being. All right? Get to work on this ability to love yourself, dear ones. God bless you. Next Sunday, we hope that you join us because we will be speaking about how to love our neighbors even when they are not being neighborly. So have a great week.